Welcome to the National Institute for Industry and Career Advancement's special event, Semiconductors for Tomorrow, Strengthening New York's Talent Pipeline Through Registered Apprenticeships. This forum is presented in partnership with Capital Region BOCES and is part of NIICA's celebration of National Apprenticeship Week. Now, please welcome Capital Region BOCES Director of Special Projects and Strategic Partnerships, Joe Dragani.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today on behalf of the entire team at Capital Region BOCES. It's great to have you here. It's so great to welcome all of my colleagues that we have been partners and friends for many, many years. And of course, Congressman Tonko, thank you for joining us. And we were just chatting a little bit before about the work that's been going on in this region, and I'm very proud of the relationship that we've had with the Congressman for many, many moons, and all the projects that we've been involved in. And I know this is an important focus on the work in semiconductors, an important focus work, especially this week as we talk about registered apprenticeships. And Capital Region BOCES, with our 300 plus partners in business and industry, we have been at this work a long time with many, many friends in our region and advancing opportunity, which really is what registered apprenticeships talk about, an opportunity about emerging fields and emerging industries and emerging sectors and all the things that we're seeing right here in our own backyard. So we reframe what that opportunity looks like from traditional career and technical educations and apply these opportunities through pre-apprenticeships, where we're talking about amazing careers, amazing job opportunities in semiconductor work that we'll talk about today, and our partners in Plug Power and all the work that we're doing with them in hydrogen and fuel cells and all of the advanced technologies, the work that we do, as well as in training for the offshore wind industry, which is taking a real foothold here in Albany, and our work with NIICA and other state agencies. So we're just really proud of everything we do. We're proud that we have so many of our partners here, and we're always thankful for the support that we have from the Congressman and his office as we look to continue to build capacity in our region in semiconductor work and in all the emergency fields. So all of our students and everybody in our region has a great opportunity to stay here, to learn, to earn, to grow, to have a great career and a great place to raise your family. So again, welcome to Capital Region BOCES. Thank you so much, and thank you to my colleagues and the Congressman and his office for all their work, and NIICA and to Mike Russo and the team there for hosting this great event. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Please welcome Congressman Paul Tonko.
Well, good morning, everyone. What a great opportunity for us all to gather and celebrate a number of situations. Certainly, yesterday we recognized was the National Semiconductor Day, which is very worthy celebration, and the 10th anniversary of National Apprenticeship Week. So, you know, as we grow into a rather new economy, an innovation economy, a precision economy, a clean energy economy, there are many, many factors out there of change, nuances that need to be addressed by honing the skills of today's worker and tomorrow's worker. And I think what we'll discuss today is that focus, laser sharp, on how we can develop those skills that will be required. And certainly as we grow opportunity here with the landing of many investments, we want to make certain that local people have an opportunity to enter into that workforce of the future. So let me begin by thanking Mike Russo. Mike, we've known each other a long time. Thank you for your vision with apprenticeships and for your work on putting us together today. And thank you to the team from NIICA and Joe Dragani from the Capital Region BOCES, who, as he indicated, he and I have been working for a long time on these issues, going back to my days at NIICA, but actually, in my days in the State Assembly, we looked at the upstate map of New York and looked at specific thematics as they could be connected, technology and innovation. And in this region, energy and environment as a scaled idea is, I think, what began the whole effort. So, and I thank everyone who is part of our panel here today, representing partners across the industry and academia. And I think we're going to have a great and interesting discussion. Since 2009, I have served as representative for New York's Capital Region in the House of Representatives, namely the 20th Congressional District. I'm proud to represent a district that is home to many of the most exciting things happening in the semiconductor industry today. The Capital Region is approximately recognized, and appropriately so, as the hub for innovation and collaboration due to our sophisticated ecosystem of academia, of government, and certainly of private industry. We offer cutting-edge innovation and research, advanced manufacturing, and world-class institutions of higher learning that attract talent basically from around the world. And the impact that this industry has on our state as a whole is huge, supporting more than 34,000 jobs across 150 companies, with our universities graduating 43,000 graduates in STEM-related degrees each and every year. So all of you are here today because you recognize that as we continue to grow our high-tech innovation economy, we simply cannot afford to neglect the workforce development associated with that, and obviously the needs that exist in the vital industries of the future. Initiatives such as the first in the nation Opportunity Hub and the new and expanded Gaines Registered Apprenticeship Program announced last June could not have come at a more critical time, and again, thank you for the vision. The integration of our region's exceptional education system into one skills-based pipeline through the Opportunity Hub is connecting ambitious job seekers to apprenticeships, to trainings and fulfilling careers, and exposing students from as early as kindergarten to the vast array of opportunities that await them in tech-based industries. Oftentimes we talk about offering jobs and developing jobs and sharing that opportunity with people. But I think it's fair and just and basically sound to say we're not only developing jobs, but we're developing careers, because there are a lot of growth opportunities in this industry. And I think that will be a double-fisted benefit for all those who are touched by the efforts made. And the Gaines Registered Apprenticeship Program gives a broader, more diverse population of Americans the chance to participate in these high-value careers. The Capital Region is a perfect place for these two programs. That's why I believe that New York Creates and the Albany Nanotech Complex were chosen to lead the very first Chips for America R&D flagship facility in our country. That's a great feather in our cap, and proud to all be part of that celebration and the development. A lot of advocacy from New York's representatives. We led a letter on behalf of that drive to name us as a center, worked with the United States Senate, with Senator Schumer and Senator Gillibrand, worked with my colleagues from the New York delegation. We're very much involved in the development of CHIPS and science legislation, with both houses working with their given starting documents to develop a consensus that led to this very strong success for upstate New York. So hooray for that recent good news. I've been telling anyone who will listen that New York is an industry pioneer uniquely positioned to propel long-term American semiconductor innovation. Our prosperity in this new economy depends on what we do now to nurture the STEM talent in our country. That's why, going forward, Congress must make certain we continue investing in high-quality workforce training, attracting and retaining high-skilled global talent, and expanding and advancing the STEM talent pipeline. I am proud of the efforts by the Biden administration over the last 4 years to support registered apprenticeships in advanced manufacturing industries. This year, they made the largest combined federal investment in registered apprenticeships, with more than $244 million going toward grant programs that will modernize, diversify, and expand the registered apprenticeship system in our growing U.S. industries. I do hope that over the next few years, our leaders will recognize how important it is to continue bolstering these investments, which will rebuild our middle class, our working families, and increase opportunities for folks who are underrepresented in the STEM fields. Looking around this room, and especially at this panel, I do believe that we can meet those challenges that face us ahead. The path ahead might be uncertain, but I am confident that dedicated folks around our great capital district and in this industry will simply rise to the occasion. You can count on me to be there to support you all down in D.C. as we continue to negotiate what is a best investment in this industry and to really put a high focus, laser sharp, on worker development. So thank you for attending today. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this great discussion, and I do look forward to this morning's activities. Thank you, everyone.
Please welcome NIICA's President and CEO, Mike Russo.
Well, welcome everybody. Thank you, Joe, for hosting us today in BOCES, the BOCES team. And Congressman Tonko said we've known each other a while. I think it's over 40 years now, but who's counting, right? Wow, scary. I will say, though, we're lucky to have the congressman represent us here. He's one of the few, if maybe the only engineer in Congress. Started out in the Energy Committee in the Assembly in New York State, then led NIICA. And he truly gets the work that we're trying to advance here. So thank you to your team and yourself for helping us advance this work. I think today this is an important discussion, and I think it'll be a lively discussion. If you look at the panel today, we're really well represented to have this discussion. So you have Katie. I'm not going to say where Christine came from, but Katie from CEG, Christine and Global Foundries. We've worked with them for years now, establishing and piloting really apprenticeship program that's now we're scaling around the country. New York Creates and Will and the team over there, Bob Gear, et cetera. We've worked early on establishing programs, NIICA, et cetera. Joe, you think about your work pre-Boston Spa, actually, and up the work at TechSmart, et cetera, a true champion. I will, full disclosure, Joe has joined our advisory board, our national advisory board. And if you think of what he brings from a K-12 education and that pathway component, we really appreciate your leadership there. And also, Dawn and Jill. Dawn is Indium, both Global Foundries and Indium. It'd be interesting to hear perspectives on how things are going with the registered apprenticeship. And then Jill, also for years we've worked when you were in the office of Johanna, who's Senior Vice Chancellor for Community Colleges in the Education Pipeline at the time. Jill is now a professor within the university system, but also brings some unique perspectives. So we actually have industry education pipeline here. So, but we work through industry intermediaries like CEG in the region, like MACD in the state, et cetera. And we do that all over the country. Oftentimes, we've learned that even the people that we're closest with, that we support most closely, right, in their programs, are still not aware of what's available. And so at NIICA, we're a 501c3 for public benefit nonprofit, and we're focused. Our mission is to ensure the talent pipeline is developed to support strategic industry sectors. Think about tech-based industries and advanced manufacturing tied to national security, global competitiveness. So we might be the only entity in the country that's focused solely on that. We are the nation's leader in semiconductor talent pipeline strategy, development, and execution. That work started here almost 15 years ago, the development of that strategy and the programs and the infrastructure. It's now being scaled nationally. We also are the U.S. Department of Labor's contracted industry intermediary to advance and expand registered apprenticeships throughout the semiconductor and nanotechnology industries in their supply chain. That portfolio did not exist prior to 2022. It was really a building trades model, if you will. Didn't quite fit advanced manufacturing. We piloted the first program with the partnership of CEG at the time in New York before it was even a registered program. It's a competency-based program, meaning you may not have to spend 3 or 4 years in a program to actually graduate. It depends if you bring skills to the table, the boxes get checked, and you could maybe advance more quickly, expeditiously, and efficiently through the process. So since that point in time, we went from 0 in a non-traditional sector. We're now in 27 states. We have 118 employers. We have 7,482 as of today apprentices committed to our program. We have over around 2,800 are registered. We've created a national network of community colleges. We call it SINC, Semiconductor Industry Network of Colleges. Around the country, we have 64 colleges. We've either established or in the process of establishing 154 apprenticeship standards. So that's from mid-22 till now, and that's based on the work that was piloted here. So actually, you have some parents here, I think, right? So that's good work. If you think about the importance of this work, really ground zero and what we're scaling, Congressman, you mentioned the Career Opportunity Hub that we launched last June, and then the BOCES stepping up for the Gateway Apprenticeship Program, which is now being scaled nationally. And what is that? That's where we're able to use what we call, it's a National Talent Hub platform to identify the knowledge, skills, and abilities required in industries, make sure the curriculum is aligned with the CTE programs, and then seamlessly transition within one system graduates right into employers. They have to sign a commitment on a registered apprenticeship. That program was established here. I was just in Ohio a couple of days ago. We just launched the Ohio GAP program, Gateway Apprenticeship Program. I was just in Texas yesterday, where the first cohort of apprentices for applied materials graduated. That, by the way, yesterday was National Women in Manufacturing Day. We also launched, just FYI, it's called the Madison Spalding Memorial Scholarship. Our first woman apprentice in the country, young lady, very passionate, an ambassador. She tragically passed away unexpectedly, and we named it a scholarship in her honor. And what we're doing through that program is we're actually funding women that want to pursue registered apprenticeships. And oftentimes we found that during that initial step, there's childcare, there's transportation oftentimes with some of these folks. Buying the first laptop, people that come from non-traditional sectors. And it's to offset those expenses so that once they get the checks flowing, because it's learn and earn, then they have a leg up, and that's truly life-changing. So in honor of Madison, we launched that. So if there's employers that are interested in sponsoring, not expensive, sponsoring the program and signing on to a registered apprenticeship and helping to defray some of those costs, just let us know. So today's panel discussion, what I thought we'd do is, back to the understanding that sometimes we don't even know what's available. What we'll do is we'll seed the discussion with some questions to get a sense of what are the current perspectives on where we are right now, right? How are things working? The talent pipeline, is it improving? The role of registered apprenticeships, is it seen as a value? By the way, New York Creates is the first registered apprenticeship in the Gaines program. That's Growing Apprenticeships in Nanotechnology Semiconductors program. That's the USTOL program we're advancing. They're the first university-based research enterprise that the operators and folks that maintain the fab are actually in a registered apprenticeship, #1 in the country. So we have employers from kind of university-based setting, economic development, as well as the employers, but maybe they don't even know. We're going to find out today what's available. So we'll get the perspectives on the various issues that we're faced, talk about opportunities, but I'll close with maybe some comments on if there are some gaps that are actually already addressed that folks aren't available, we'll share those as well. So if that makes sense, we'll just jump in. I'll leave that. I'll just warm it up, but again, Congressman, I think you like a conversation, right? Let's make it conversational. Absolutely. So there's a couple of let's just talk about first up, and feel free to jump in, right? How are things currently working? When I say working, what's the current state of access to talent? Do you see it improving or not improving? What do you see as kind of best practices? What's the current state? And feel free to add the context of how you think registered apprenticeships could help with that. And we'll open it up to whoever.
I can start us out. So, Christine McClear, Workforce Development Lead at Global Foundries. And when we're thinking about what's working, what we're doing, what's changing in the landscape, so we're really proud at Global Foundries to have been the first registered apprenticeship program in semiconductor in the country. And so we couldn't do that without our partnerships, and that continues to be a theme and really important part of what we're working on. And so when we first launched the program with a lot of help from folks who are in the room, we found that we were pulling people from other industries that we never expected to pull from. So we were pulling people in from food service, retail, childcare, education, healthcare. And that was new for us. We didn't think that we had those pathways available for folks to come into manufacturing from such diverse backgrounds. And so opening it up through apprenticeship was really meaningful for us. And so now that we're a few years into the project and really working with those folks, seeing their successes, What we're thinking about is what comes next. And NIICA has been an incredibly important partner for us as we think about our next step for those folks. They've showed commitment to their learning, commitment to development, and we want to keep moving them forward. And so we're going to work on new trades and new access for them to continue education and opportunity. So that's sort of where we are and where we're looking.
I'll chime in. Katie Newcomb from the Center for Economic Growth, or CEG. We're the region's economic development organization, but we also act as the New York State Department of Labor sponsor for registered apprenticeship. So what does that mean? That means that we truly act as an intermediary. We organize a company like Global Foundries. We organize their apprenticeship program to really be that conduit between the company and between the Department of Labor. We also play that role with our partners at NIICA. So, you know, a company doesn't have to stand up their own program and navigate all of that. They have someone, they have a trusted resource, they have a broker that brings, you know, that signs their apprentices up, that is a subject matter expert and can go back and be a liaison with the Department of Labor. And we have found that it really takes the pressure off of a company and makes it so much easier for them to focus on the things, you know, like their employees. So I think that's been a model that has worked really well at the state level with our industry partners, and then also being able to tap into you know, national best practices and national funding, right, through our partners at NIICA. And so that's been really helpful. And then I think it also solidifies those partnerships that Christine talked about. So we also work very closely with our community colleges. For instance, Hudson Valley Community College, they provide all of the related instruction for apprenticeship. So really, a company can tap into a network of subject matter experts, and they can, you know, I'm not saying it's completely easy, but it's pretty easy, you know, to be able to stand up a program and grow a program.
So if it'd be all right, I'd like to chime in a little bit. So I'm Dawn Roller. I'm from Indium Corporation. We are a privately held materials company based in Utica, New York, and we have facilities globally. To the points that both the ladies made is absolutely correct. The workforce has been challenging to tap into, and the apprenticeship programs definitely open up into pipelines that were previously unknown to the employers. And the reason that it opens this up is also because the schools and the educators are taking on the pre-apprenticeship lift, and they're talking and inviting us into more of the schools for students, you know, at the K through 12 level, and then by the time they're getting ready to exit, they're deciding, am I going to continue my education through what path? It isn't just, am I going to go to college or not? Am I going to continue my education through what path? And many of them that come and start working in industry have never been in industry. They don't know what it is, but at least now they have a sense of what it is, and they have awareness that it is a very lucrative career, not just a job. It is a step-off point, and that they can keep developing over their life. Apprenticeships give us the ability to help people ladder and move through their career and see what could be next, even if they're not deciding right now.
Maybe a question to our presenters to date, or anyone on the panel. The fact that women and underrepresented minorities are still a factor in the industry, and it's probably true in the heavily technical fields. What major efforts are being made as we speak to emphasize the connection with those underrepresented minorities and with women, so that these opportunities that are presenting themselves in our region and nationally with the industry are fertile ground for folks and the opportunities that they can garner from all that connection?
So thank you for that, Congressman. I would say that from our standpoint, what we've seen is we work closely in our region with our community colleges. Mohawk Valley Community College, they do our required instruction, and the Manufacturing Association of Central New York, MACNY, is our sponsor. And we spend a lot of time, the three groups together and us as an employer, going into the community and taking people from the community that are known to the community to talk about what it is to work in industry and the support that they can get both on the job and their wraparound services. So we have a very strong Rosie's program in the Mohawk Valley, and we spend lots of time promoting that program to young ladies to help them stand on their own feet, and that provides a lot of the wraparound services that help them take that leap of faith. And I've spoken to several Rosies who ventured into that program because the initial gift was a monetary sum of money that helped them. They needed it right now. We have a Rosie on our team she's a guest speaker often, and she will tell you she had no intentions of continuing her education or even taking a job. And she has elevated, and she tells us that she has her first home ever. She's a rehabilitated individual, and she's strong, and we are her family, and that coming into this through this program lets her see that she can develop and learn safely and be well cared for and wrapped in the community and in her employment.
Great.
And I'll add, and Christine, I think we can tag team this, that Real Life Rosie's program, pre-apprenticeship program targeted to women and underrepresented individuals, really was piloted by MACNY in that area, and it's become a best practice. And so we're scaling that now in 2025 to the Capital Region, and really in part, through our partnership with Global Foundries and others, being able to bring that here and offer that. And so we are not operating in silos when we're looking at the programs in this state and how powerful those can be.
Katie's exactly right. We're very excited to work with partners to scale and replicate Real Life Rosies in the Capital Region. And I think other than just knowing that that's work that we need to be doing and work that we see working in other regions, we know from our existing apprenticeship program in the pool that the people who come in as technician apprentices are more diverse than their non-apprentice counterparts. And so we saw that right away. We know that apprenticeship is inherently barrier removal because it throws the door wide open for people to come in and know that they can learn while they're here with us. And so to add on a program like Real Life Rosies to work with our partners to do that and know that we're bringing them into a place where they can be successful and see people like them at work, it's really, really important.
Just add really quick, a lot of the work that we do is to make sure that young women know that pipeline is available. So we have a really big, and credit to my team that's here in the room, our Women in the Trades program is huge. And we feature programs with women who've been successful in the industry, and there's nothing more powerful than women in our manufacturing speaking to young women who are looking at a career in manufacturing. So we're trying to build this opportunity, a talent pool. When they leave us, they get advanced standing into apprenticeships, and we have this natural, as has been pointed out, and I think we do well in our region's natural connection to be able to do that, but providing that opportunity when young women are still thinking about careers and what that might look like has been really important, and I think we've made tremendous gains in that, and we have young women across all of the technical industries in apprenticeships that have been very successful, that move into Rosie's programs and move into full apprenticeships and move into those supports once they leave us. So I think establishing that pipeline, knowing when you're 15, 16, 17 years old, that, no, this is a great career opportunity for you, and then speaking to women who have been successful in the industry, it's been a game changer, really focusing on that and letting folks know that this is somewhere where you can go, and candidly, they're the most in demand employees that come through our program. You're a young woman, and you're a heavy equipment operator, and you're in manufacturing, and you're in welding and fabrication. You have the entire career spectrum in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other comments?
I'm going to just go back to Christine just quickly, Congressman.
Sure.
I think she undersold Global Foundries a little bit, but a lot of the employers have individual programs as well, like Global Women. And you had referenced, Congressman, that you assume that there was there was room to grow with women. I'll just say, women in engineering for manufacturing, it's only 11%. So programs like Global Women, for example, but again, a lot of the employers have various programs. They participate in other broader programs to help scale them, but they have individual initiatives as well.
I think Dr. Jill was going to say something.
Thank you, Congressman. Yes, to add on to what everyone said, in addition to supporting women, to your question, we're also supporting traditionally underserved communities in so many ways. And so I have the good fortune of being at the University of Albany right now, which the student leadership among all populations of students, particularly those that have been historically underrepresented, our African American students, our Latino students, it's phenomenal to see the work that they're leading in STEM fields in general. So we have that. We also have a program, thanks to SUNY, with their pre-apprenticeship program. It has just changed the dynamic about students, giving them the pathway to careers in this important field. And then the other thing is, at State University, I'm actually in the College of Emergency Preparedness, Homeland Security, and Cybersecurity. And so I have to credit the dean and the vice dean there for all of the work that they have done to create pathways beginning at the very age of kindergarten and upwards to higher education. So one of the things that we have done is we've had our graduate students mentor young students and actually deputize them as scientists at a very early age and get them interested in STEM, provide them with STEM literacy skills, and also bring them on the pipeline. So that goes right through middle school to high school. So I think those connections are so critical, and thank you for your leadership in investing in all of these various connections, because it's making a difference.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Bill, were you going to say something too?
Yeah, I would echo what everyone said. I know there was a lot that was said on the topic. One thing I would just like to echo is being able to show women in these roles is really important to me and to our organization. So when we bring in apprentices, we bring in interns, or just school groups to come through, our ability to show that our top development engineer is a woman. The person that runs our facilities engineering group is a woman, which historically and throughout the industry, you don't really see that too often. So being able to highlight those people and say, not only can you get this entry level role or an engineering role, like you can be senior leadership in this too.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting when I talk amongst my constituents, a number of people, adults, will say, well, what happens in semiconductor? What are the skill sets? What's the product delivery looking like? What's the process? And I have to believe that to a young mind, this whole industry could be intimidating, perhaps, or maybe even at best galactic. So how do you to take it back a bit from this audience development of underrepresented and female in general across the board? Is there an effort made, or can we improve upon connection somehow so that there is this curiosity and there's this drive? I'm sure that the schools will provide tours or something, but should we be doing more so that they know what the industry is and that they will have a corresponding interest in it?
So thank you for your question. We believe strongly that, the younger the student is, the less they understand about the world has to offer. And what they know is what's in their immediate purview, right? Which is the old, are you going to be a fireman or a mailman or a doctor or that kind of thing. So we believe that taking what we can and going to the students and meeting them in their classrooms, on their fields, on their field trips, and at their events is the way to sort of close that gap and to talk to them about what are their innate interests, and understand that the only thing that's keeping them from entertaining this is that they don't see it. So we, just from our standpoint, we go into the community more than 100 times a year and engage students and educators. We go into the classroom. We help supplement whatever they're teaching by bringing a little bit about what we do in our world and the jobs that we have and the careers that we offer. We serve as judges on science fairs. We serve as coaches on teams, anything to help build that connection with the students so that the first thing that they have is familiarity with all of us, and it feels safe. Because once it's safe, experimentation and curiosity is more natural.
Yeah, and with their coursework, with their subject materials, they need to have purpose, right? So that engages the academics for them. If they know the purpose for taking math or whatever and how it relates to the industry, is a good driving factor, I would think. Christine, I think I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I would say that's exactly right. I feel like, so similarly, we're working on K-12 initiatives, even up into our community college partners, to make sure that we're taking work that's kind of abstract and making it more tangible for students. And so similarly, going to classroom visits and that type of thing, and really connecting it back to what they're learning. Because if they're learning it out of context, you're exactly right. They think, I'm never going to need this. How many times did we say, oh, when am I ever going to use this when we're going through school? But to connect it to the real life impact that semiconductors have in their lives, that's when we see that light bulb moment with students, and they get curious and they want to know how it works, and they ask questions that frankly I can't always answer, and I have to connect them with a true subject matter expert so that they can get into the nitty gritty of how this is all working and how it impacts our lives day to day. And so that's a really important part for us, thinking through bringing them on site, making sure that they have that access. And a really great story that we have from a student from BOCES who came on for our job shadow program last spring. She has said she didn't see herself working in semiconductor. She didn't know what that was. She didn't know that Global Foundries was right here in her backyard. And she started with us as an apprentice after graduation, and she's doing incredibly. She's been a wonderful asset to her team. She's really outperforming a lot of her cohorts, and as one of her instructors said, she keeps the guys on their toes. And so we're really excited to see not only her success, but that that pathway is working and that those partnerships really do bring students in.
When I started in the semiconductor field, one of the first issues that I saw in terms of recruitment was, when we go out into the community, we go to job fairs, we go to schools, people have a little bit of an idea of what we do and you can explain it to them, and then the initial reaction, Congressman, like you said, is that it's intimidating. I'm not smart enough to work there. I'm not smart enough to work in that field. So one of the things that we did that made a huge difference was really focus our recruitment efforts, our advertising, our outreach, that we have jobs for everyone. You don't need to be a PhD in mechanical engineering to work here. You can come in with a high school diploma, we'll get you an apprenticeship, we'll grow you. You can come in on the administrative side, finance. There's a ton of jobs in the field, and really the crux of it was you don't have to have a PhD to work here. We have jobs for everyone.
Availability in the trades, too.
Yeah.
So, Katie, I think you were going to say something? Or...
Oh, I was just going to say, there's a lot of examples of best practices, I think, and we need to celebrate all of that, and I think learn from all of that. But you asked the question, is there more that we can do? And I think that there is. I think that there are people doing it really well, and we have some examples here. But I think that there's ways that we can coordinate and scale that. And because it can't all be on sort of some of our best private industry partners, right? Or can't all be on, some of our best CTE partners. So I think there's ways to sort of have some standardized curriculum or some standardized outreach or some language that we can learn from our partners that are doing it well to get people, more acclimated and understanding and aware. So I think there's a lot of really good things happening. I do think that there's some room for improvement from learning from our partners.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else on that topic?
So Joe Dragoni is the epitome of success when we talk about leadership at this level. And I would just say that we have as you know, we have the best teachers in your district and in the state and in the nation right here. And what the teachers have been able to do in terms of engaging with business partners in the summer and through regular intensive experiences, they've been able to understand what it takes to work in the semiconductor industry and also what all of the opportunities are for their students in that industry, and are able to provide them with opportunities, hands-on learning experiences in their school buildings. So I think that is really going a long way. And then the other thing I wanted to add was that when I first started this, which it's amazing when you start to become the seasoned professional, is that we were challenged once when we were collaborating to bring together our STEM partners, our K-12 leaders, our higher education leaders, and our industry partners by the question of, you have 1,000 points of light, but how do you all come together to move in the same direction and try to make change? And so as a result of that, Joe Dragoni and Karen Fox, who's in the audience, they brought a team together of experts, and we're actually went through a very, very rigorous process to be designated a STEM ecosystem. And what that is it's champions at the highest level, but also leadership at every level. And I think that's what it takes to get better. And I agree with the concept of scale. I think we continue to strive to do that, and the better that we can become at getting better, the more students we'll have for the future of the industry. So thank you for the question.
Is there a reason or a dedicated pool of activity that we can do, of resources that we can provide from the federal level that would assist some of the extras that you think would be helpful? Is there a way to earmark some funds for a particular, perhaps teachers as intermediaries with the work you do, or for industry, for mentoring? I would think the mentoring complement to apprenticeships is important, so that the facilitator or the intermediary can be all the more savvy about connecting your program, your apprenticeships, to the general audience of students or job seekers.
So I feel like we've seen at the federal level, which is wonderful, and also at a state level, a lot of support for semiconductor industry. And that is great, but I think exactly what you're talking about there is the coordination effort becomes a challenge, right? There are these 1,000 points of light, and how do we bring them together to move them in the same direction? And so any sort of coordination and hub that we can be a part of to work on that together, I think that's where we really need some support. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we live at this very interesting intersection where half of my world is education, but half of the world is labor, for lack of a better word, right? So, I mean, we're always serving these two masters that rarely get together on things, and it's at a state level, again, and it's a federal level as well, where we're with the constant demands of the education world. But the reality is, and we're talking about pre-apprenticeships, we're talking about all this work, we're talking about workforce development, it's in the labor world. So there's a constant tension around that, and I think investment in a structure, kind of like what Christine, I think, was leaning into, that finally bridges these in terms of outcome, would be a great investment. And the second part of that, too, is to go even further under that type of structure. I see opportunities where we can invest in the teachers and the staff, which is really important. And we see some of that work with partners in our region, where Regeneron and others, where there's opportunities where they fund teachers to be part of programs. But those, amazing programs, but they're one-offs in terms of building capacity. You know, when there's so much regulation around certifications and the work that goes into apprenticeships, centralizing that, where our focus becomes beyond that, we're really training teachers to understand the role of how their work connects with career opportunities and all these other fields and the work that we're talking about here today. I think there's something to be said for that investment, where instead of one teacher can experience that, there's a lens of being able to bring the opportunity and be able to scale it. So I think it's twofold. One is something needs to be done about these two worlds that live separately in terms of quote unquote education and quote unquote labor. There has to be, right? I mean, we're constantly fighting how those are juxtaposed about each other. It's very interesting. It's interesting at different levels, but I think the investment in that and those structures and supporting the workforce will build capacity for opportunities that you'll see in the workforce pipeline.
And if those activities and the investments are done in a silo, then that partnership or that cross-pollination is never going to be as great as it ought to be.
Absolutely. And whether it's the investment that's in silos, the approvals that are in silos, from a personal experience, we're going through that right now. We have launched an amazing clean energy program for next year. Partners with Plug Power, our friends in the audience here, and Global Foundries, and many other folks in our region, funneled, informed by industry, part of pre-apprenticeship work, right? The education doesn't recognize that, right? So I'm fighting to get approval for a program that we all know sitting here is, one, it's in demand, and two, the career opportunities are amazing with folks that are in the space that just candidly don't understand it, right? So how can this investment be where, yeah, like we're bringing all these things to the table on a pathway that has to happen, and what can that joint investment that you're referring to, Congressman, I think that's a real structure that can strengthen and expedite these opportunities, because we're moving, everybody's pulling in, we're building another 50,000 square feet across the street when you pulled into this. I mean, we just continue to grow and grow and grow, but we're dealing with tension on either side that's unnecessary when there can be enough informed about what's required in the space and what's required of the programs.
And just having government be ahead of the curve.
Yes, yes.
So that
Yes.
there's a more practical, pragmatic
Yeah, and I think that
outcome.
would be a strong investment, I really do.
Even when we think about math in elementary, we need applied math, making certain that there's a better connectability of what we're doing. I think that's important. Katie, you look like you were going to say something.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo that. It's building the infrastructure. It's building the connective tissue, right? So I think we get a lot of investment sort of in training. We get a lot of, and all of this is needed. And just thank you, because unprecedented levels of investment in workforce. We are able to do things because of the federal government's investment right now that we could never have imagined. And kudos to the state of New York and to Governor Hochul as well, because they are, putting the money in it too. And so we have this amazing opportunity. But we are all, industry is focusing on what they need to focus on. Education is focusing on what they need to focus on. Where many of us are nonprofits or university partners. And so then it's the funding to really incentivize building out the infrastructure and the money to build out that infrastructure, to bring all of these disparate partners together and create that framework that then is sustainable, right? So I'm saying the same thing, but we need to look at it as an infrastructure investment.
Other comments from anyone? Okay, so
I think, why don't we talk, we talked about some best practices, or, we didn't actually mention, most of the practices, but you said there's individual programs, individual approaches, there's a lot of bits and pieces of good work going on. You mentioned, the Rosie's program, for example, that's being scaled. That's an example of a program. It started small, it was acknowledged as being good, and it's being expanded. Are there other practices or programs or items that you see that we're doing regionally that are, worthy of scaling, that would make sense to scale? Any examples of that?
If I could just add that two of the other programs that were precursors to the apprenticeship world for us were in conjunction with our local BOCES, right? So we had an array of student and business alliance programs where students, primarily at the middle school and high school level, engaged with industry in terms of job shadows and some internship-like opportunities where they would come and stay with their host in the job, 1 day a week for so many weeks at a time, and the P-Tech programming. Those were where we saw early successes in connecting education and industry and understanding each other's challenges and helping each other. So I think programs like that at the K through 12 were extremely valuable and helped pave the way to what we're doing with the apprenticeship programs today.
anything within the P-Tech context that you would recommend be done that's not being done, or enhanced that could make even better success possible?
I think from our standpoint, and I'm not sure what everybody else's experience is, for me, it would be a scale of more. Like, it was so successful.
Mm-hmm.
We would work with cohorts that were maybe 24 students large and stay with them through their program and offer employer challenges and be there and mentoring and coaching. And we always wish there could just be more. Why is it only 24 students? Couldn't it be more? These students are so engaged and they're so exciting to work with. And the the trifecta win was, the educators were getting insight that they could use in the classrooms. The employers were learning about what really motivates and what students have to offer. And then the families and the community were learning from that experience too, and it was really helping the whole community elevate.
Yeah,
So I
I've
would say
seen
more.
P-Tech students respond to the Secretary of Education on a tour to Hudson Valley, and just the incredible control and confidence that they had and sophistication was remarkable. And it's a good program. It's a good program. That networks with an apprenticeship like this with the Institute. So, Bill.
One area where I think we could expand, and I don't know exactly what programs are in place right now, but on the trade side, like electrical, HVAC, plumbers, some of the feedback that I get from our hiring managers or directors over those groups is that a lot of the people that seem to be applying have good experience on the residential side, but what we need is industrial side, which apparently, not being an electrician or a plumber, is way different. So if there could be, a little bit of focus on that, so when people come in, at least they have a little bit of experience on the industrial side of things, not just the residential or commercial.
Christine?
I would agree with everything that's been said so far and echo the successes of Real Life Rosie's. How do we cross-train? How do we expand those programs like P-Tech for early wins? But I also wanted to call out programs like First Robotics. That's a great pipeline and program for us that we may not see directly because there's a pretty big gap between when students are participating in First Robotics and when they might come to work for us. But we know that girls who participate in First are more likely to study a STEM field when they go to college. And so we're looking at ways to link that back to, okay, so when you have gone through that education and training, how do you then find your way back to Global Foundries? Because we saw you when you were in high school competing in these wonderful robotics competitions, and now we want to bring you back into the loop. So just really getting creative about the other programs and partnerships that we work with in addition to the ones that have been called out already.
Are there any peer-to-peer opportunities where apprentices talk to potential apprentice students? Is there any kind of interaction and communication in that capacity?
In addition to the sort of mentoring that they get on site once they've joined a program, but we do also really try to bring apprentices into what we call our Global Ambassador program that goes out to do those K-12 education and outreach events. So they're going to be the students who are, or the volunteers and employees who come out with us and say to students, these are the opportunities that are available, because frankly, hearing it from me, they're sort of like, whatever, you're old. But hearing it from someone who just went through the program, that's much more effective. They see themselves in those folks.
Mike and I are trying to figure out what old is and what really old is.
That program is really important because it serves so much to the key of what we do. And we take advantage of all that. We're constantly have folks in the apprenticeship world and in just associated with industry that are either in that or going towards that, speaking with our students. They're in our classrooms all the time. It's so important. And a lot of them are graduates. A lot of our graduates teach here. A lot of our graduates went through apprenticeship programs. To come back and say, well, I did this, and one, I'm successful. Two, they might be leading their own crew or their own, leading something that's making a real significant impact for an employer. For the students to have the conversations with them. I mean, those are the connections besides the old part, which we all boldly admit to here. It's the reality check of, I was just there 5 years ago. Somebody had that conversation with me. So those programs are really, really important. And that's one example, and we see that across all the sectors that we work with, where folks that are successful in industry, who have that training and background, are reaching out and always giving back, which is nice. That's one thing about all of these fields, the willingness to give back and help support students that are looking for careers in those pathways.
Is there feedback that you get from the apprenticeship and training or from those who have completed the apprenticeships? Do they feed you any kind of critique? Is there anything they saw was lacking or would have made it even better? Anything they tell you that we could do to expand from their perspective?
So I think what we hear a lot is that they are working full-time. They are working adults who are trying to figure out how to take class at the same time. And so really it's on us and on our training partners who do a really wonderful job, like Hudson Valley Community College really works with us to make sure that they can access the supports that they need, the training that they need on a schedule that works for them, because if they're working 12-hour shifts, we can't, it's really difficult to ask them to go to class after that. And so how do we work with our partners to sort of manage that and make that more accessible? And what those changes we made have come directly out of conversations we've had with apprentices. So we're constantly doing internal roundtables, checking in with them, seeing what they need, and those learnings are coming directly out of that.
Not particular to the semiconductor industry, but what we have seen, I think, recently are a few really strong examples of sort of low hurdle training programs that have been stood up. BOCES being one of them in their Pathways to Wind, they focused very closely on the recruitment part of bringing people into the program, and Joe can talk more about this, but really making sure when we talk about underrepresented individuals, having sort of a trusted community partner to go in and do that recruiting effort, and then remove those hurdles. There's transportation that is included. You know exactly what the pathway is and what the time commitment is. And they got a lot of people that were interested, and they were able to fill a cohort. Hudson Valley Community College has done this in the bio space, really meeting people where they are, providing those robust wraparound services, and going so far as to say, we know that you can't take time out of your life without essentially being paid for it. And so they receive a stipend. And the way that they're brought into the program, they're brought in by trusted messengers and community members. So, there are a few organizations that are doing this really well in our region. And I think, some recent examples have shown us, okay, there's a model out there that can work, because it's hard work. And it takes more time and it takes more energy to meet people where they are and to do it in a very meaningful way. And we've talked about it for a long time. And I think, BOCES, Hudson Valley Community College, the SEAT Center, there are some organizations, and with the support of our workforce development boards, that are doing this really well, and we're seeing that it's working. And that is a best practice that we can take and apply to any training program we're trying to stand up and learn from and improve on and iterate. But I've just been, I've been incredibly impressed with some of the work that our partners have been doing, that hard work on the recruitment and awareness.
I agree. It's the things that we hear from the apprentices is, first and foremost, I never saw myself here. It took me seeing somebody like me doing this to believe it was possible. And then really the second is everything that the ladies have spoken about. It's overcoming those hurdles to engage. We have lots of apprentices that transportation is a problem, childcare is a problem. They, like you said, they can't afford to give up a couple hours of work. We experimented with some things early in our apprenticeship program. We brought the first couple community college required instruction classes on site and did them during working hours, because we wanted them, the apprentices, to understand you can do it and we will help you with those hurdles. This may not be the long-term solution, but let's try it together. And then what we hear is they're so excited by their success that they go back and they tell their family and their friends and their neighbors and their congregation and different people about it, and they pull them forward. So they become the biggest community ambassadors. But that need to help them with their challenges and wraparound services doesn't end when the apprenticeship does, right? We have apprentices that are now journey workers. They hold their card. They want to continue with course cert, and they still have transportation and childcare issues. So those are significant barriers that I know we don't have a solution to, but we have to keep talking about. Otherwise, they'll plateau again, because the same challenges, they face the same challenges.
I have to say that I was really pleased with the efforts that we made in the House to make certain that with the distribution of disbursement of semiconductor dollars, that there would be child care opportunities, so that if we're truly going to engage in diversity, to know that those are some of the highest needs, and they get very much more pronounced for single-parent moms, for individuals living in a poorer setting where there might not be family reinforcement to take care of some of the essentials. So I think it was a proven benefit that is already being expressed as a good piece of the package.
It makes a huge difference in the lives of these people that could benefit from these programs. I was going to say a couple of things. One is that post-pandemic, I think some students are feeling somewhat isolated, and I think that they're telling us they have mental health challenges to overcome, and it's just been a different world for our students after the pandemic. But the opportunities are there for them, and I have to credit our state's amazing community college system and the community colleges for meeting people regionally, and then also partnerships that we have with our regional leaders, like the Commissioner of Rensselaer County Workforce Development is here today, Ryan Williams, and just to have these opportunities to work together to build transferable skills, and also to create an access point for these students that are underserved because of isolation and not knowing where to go. And that's where I want to just credit Mike Russo and the team at the National Institute, because they've been amazing at solving a problem we couldn't solve over the decades, which was that employers were publishing these job postings, and they needed these skills, and from a student who doesn't see how to get there, what is the pathway to actually coming to a place where you can, be successful in the industry and actually get a job, and maybe even an advanced career opportunity. And so what Mike's been able to do in terms of identifying gaps, filling gaps, creating opportunities for lifelong learning, and then also putting student profiles and industry profiles into a state system that match across the nation is just something, like I said, we have not been able to solve this problem before, and I think that the leadership you're providing is pretty incredible. So thank you for that. But the more that we can do to connect the dots and create the alignment, the better off we'll be in the long run.
Awesome.
Maybe we'll take a pause. I see the clock running. I think we're right about on time. Maybe I could frame a couple of things and what we've heard, and just kind of revisit a little bit. First of all, I'll say, you mentioned the pandemic, Jill. We lost about 1.3 million jobs during the pandemic, and think about manufacturing-ish, advanced manufacturing in general. We've recovered about 63%. I'm talking about people in jobs, 63%. So we're about 570,000 short. In semiconductor, we're looking at about 40,000 additional jobs when these fabs come online.
Sure.
And there's going to be a shortfall there. But what I think is important, and I forget whether it was Will or Joe, someone mentioned, maybe it was you, Christine, that semiconductor is important, but it can't be the sole focus. And maybe it was KDU from a CEG perspective. When you build a pipeline, right now there's a lot of talk, and our government friends are talking about semiconductor-specific strategies. And I keep trying to get people to say, that's not a good way to really couch it, because in order to get more people into the pipeline, they have to be developing those foundational skills that are transferable to all forms of manufacturing, advanced manufacturing and tech. And we redesigned the USDO competency model for advanced manufacturing. We pulled as much of those competencies down, so there's a foundation now. If you're going to go into semiconductor, aerospace, biomanufacturing, clean energy, it's the same foundation. Mm-hmm. And if I'm someone that's investing time and energy, and also by taking it down to that level, you can do it through public education, I'm building those skills that maybe if I do go into semiconductor, it's very cyclical. I'm going to, at some point, if I'm on the low end of the totem pole, Christine knows that, you're going to be furloughed. That's just the nature that's cyclical, right? So being able to leverage those skills and still be part of the ecosystem, the supply chain, and also when there's big investments in fabs, you don't want to deplete all the other small and medium-sized manufacturers. You want to have a solid, broader pipeline. That also, we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion. I would argue that it doesn't even need to be framed that way. It's about more people in the pipeline. It's great because it provides opportunity, but it's important because there's not enough people in that pipeline. A couple of things that we talked about, the need to scale. So I mentioned what our role is and what we're focused on. It's just that. And you had asked, I'm not shy, Congressman, when you said, what can we fund? I mean, everybody kind of like, let's.
It's a dangerous question.
Yeah,
to
well,
ask.
I've been here next to you for quite some time, so don't ask me that question, or at least in front of me, right? So what we've done is we've established, I'd encourage you to look at the National Talent Hub, go to NIICA.org, sponsor programs, go to the National Talent Hub. There's a quick 5-minute video. It explains how, it's a graphic depiction, but it tells you how it works. So we're launching we launched the New York Career Opportunity Hub. That will be infrastructure for New York. It's available. We talked about the Gateway Apprenticeship Program that was launched first here. That is making career and technical education programs pre-apprenticeship at scale all through one system. That infrastructure is here. It's intended to design to be scaled. And I'll say BOCES here stepped up. You know, they early on said, we are in, we get it, we will support the scaling, we will support other regions. You know, they provide programmatic support through the Department of Ed, I believe a contract to other BOCES if I'm not mistaken, but they stepped up. They're ready, willing, and able, right? Joe, actually, you were involved when you mentioned FIRST Robotics, Christine. So I know Dean Kamen, he's a friend, and we said, how do we bring that to the regular K-12 education system without having to change curriculum, which is problematic in states, right? And we developed the Robotics for Experiential Applied Learning. If you go to sponsored programs, NIICA.org, look at Real Robotics. It's a quick 5-minute, super powerful. We piloted it with the leadership of Joe and his team, and Dean came and provided engineers from his DECA engineering. But we piloted it, I think, within 6 school districts just before the pandemic, and then it wiped out the supply chain for manufacturing. Super powerful program. Again, leadership on this level, saying, we get it, what can we do? That's intended to be scaled across the country in all 4th grade classes. I'm not going to get into it, watch the video, super powerful. So what can you do on earmarks, right? Mm-hmm. What we do is we provide a very high level of subject matter expertise in semiconductor, advanced manufacturing, engineering, et cetera, very unique. And what we're able to do is we have the playbook. We have the strategy. We have the infrastructure. It's been developed at the request of then the Obama administration. That's how long we've been in development. Mm-hmm. We have people willing to advance it, to be the advocate, to be the ambassador. When we submit proposals, it's not for our funding as a nonprofit. It's to provide funding to the BOCES of the world, the CEGs of the world, to add headcount for outreach and engagement. We can give them the playbook. We can give them the programs. We already know the best practice. We're all over the country, right? That's the best, that's the wisest investment. The interesting dynamic with the CHIPS Act funding is now when the state and federal government apply that to the street, the funding opportunities go out. It moves, before there was funding, there was actually more of a collaborative environment. But now it's competitive. People go after the funds, they don't work collaboratively so much, and when they receive the funding, they have to show that they know what they're doing and are advancing their program. It's actually making it, in some cases, more difficult to collaborate. It's a very interesting dynamic. So if there's ways to get federal dollars outside of those channels, and now with the change of administration through earmarks, through our ability, we can actually, from a national hub perspective, we know exactly where to apply that money. How many times have we submitted funding requests for CEG and for BOCES, et cetera, and we're going at it again, right? That money goes right to them to scale. So that's important. Leading by example is so important. We talked about women, and I gave you the 11% number. You know, at the Institute, our director of national apprenticeships is Martha Ponji, originally from McNeese, is a woman. Our executive director graduated from the first internship for a semiconductor pro. Back then it was National Semiconductor. She was one of the first she was the first cohort, one of 4. She's the only one that finished it. Nikki Zahir, she's our executive director. If you look at our board chairman of our board, Melinda Woods, she's a semiconductor engineer. That's her education, right? But she led Title III DPA Defense Production Act for the Department of Defense. She was a senior advisor to the Secretary of Defense on supply chain readiness. She's our board chair. And I could go on and on. You have to live it. If there's few to pick from, pick the cherries and put them out front and let the others look up. If someone said they have to look like you, not like me, and by the way, we're already represented. It's interesting, when you go to the Real Robotics video and you look at it, the production company said, we should take that picture out, because when the kids were presenting and doing their thing during a conference, in the back you saw there was like 20 people in a circle watching them on the floor, the gymnasium floor. They were all white males, older white males. They all looked like me. And they wanted to scrub that. I said, do not scrub that, because that's the state that we're trying to, that doesn't represent America, that doesn't represent a true pipeline. That's what it is now. Look on the floor, that's what it can be. Other thing I want to just mention is you said that, providing opportunity for a broader audience. I'm actually going to call India now. So we were asked by the First Lady's office to provide one of our apprentices nationwide to introduce her to launch the workforce hubs about 1.5 years ago during the DOL Employment Training Administration Conference. So we picked 2 apprentices, we sent them down. One of them was actually an apprentice from India. And it's really interesting because we sponsored an event in Ohio about a little less than 1 year ago now. And I'll never forget the panel. They were talking about who's interested in these careers. And one of the panelists actually said, these jobs aren't for the baristas at Dunkin' Donuts. And I can tell you that there was a young lady who didn't have, her family wasn't university bound. They didn't participate, had not previously participated in college or university education, no degrees. And she was quote unquote the barista, but Starbucks, right? If I'm not, no, it was Starbucks. They said, I said she was at Dunkin' Donuts, but she was a group leader. She trained people on the customer interface system, et cetera, and she was encouraged to get involved with the apprenticeship program, our Gaines program. She was quickly tapped, and I'm not going to put words in Dawn's mouth, and she can just shake her head yes or no if I'm off topic or if I'm fish out of water here, but she was quickly tapped to be a group leader while she was in the apprenticeship program. While she went through her training provided, related technical instruction provided, she actually pursued additional community college training, and now I think she now is a shift leader or supervisor, or is on track to be, I don't know. But anyway, that's a great example of somebody thought that there was I could never do this, and they're doing it. And that's a credit to the leadership.
Also a mentor now.
See, I was right. I deal with a lot of people. So she's a mentor of others, but that's leading by example. So that's corporate leadership. That's showing opportunity to a young woman that stepped up, proved everybody wrong, and now you can't stop her, right? As far as pathway, so we have components of pathway. Again, we start in the 4th grade. That's a super cost-effective program that any employer can get behind. An Indian world could take it to the school system and launch it. And whether it's that program or a like program, we have a platform to share that, right? It's already established. What that does is there's an ambassador component of that. They see the big kids, and they kind of, and the lights go on before they've learned that it's not for them, which is great. And by the way, I've noticed, and I hate to stereotype, but it seems like the young ladies are the leadership in those teams, or the leaders in those teams. The boys want to drive the robot, the women want to lead. And I don't like to stereotype, but that is very apparent to me. But then, so you have the ambassadors. So if you align your early college, high school programs to make sure, P-TECH is good, but that's a 6-year requirement. You could still put credits in a kid's pocket that they can cash in without that. Same basic model. We were involved, Joe. I'll also say, Joe, you were involved in establishing that model before there was a P-TECH. All right, so there's where it actually started here in New York, all right? Then you get into the career and technical education, the Gateway Apprenticeship Program. Whether they are approved by the state or not, we have the ability for folks that graduate from those programs to get credit in the National Talent Hub or the New York Career Hub, right? And actually transition them right into registered apprenticeships and give them credit for what they've learned. We want state approval because sometimes there's money available to the providers, right? It's important. But even without that, we can provide that transition. Think of the pipeline. Early K-12, looking up to the older kids, right up through career and technical education. That program also has a component of an ambassador piece where one woman and one male are trained with leadership and communication skills. They're given the marketing material. Their job is to go out into that student population to get others interested in pursuing the career and technical education program. And the other thing they're charged with doing is tapping the next generation of ambassadors because they're going to graduate. So it's sustainable. But again, having BOCES here in New York lead that and offering to lead that across the only thing preventing us from scaling it further faster is money. Back to the money. So that's kind of really a round robin of kind of what I think I heard. The other thing was the investment in teachers and staff. Oftentimes what we do is we start these career opportunity hubs. We help the regions do a full capability assessment. Do you have truly shared training assets? Do you have career and technical education or early college, high school programs with curriculum that's aligned? The instructor base, is it there? Do you have the right tools and equipment? And once we go through the assessment, you fill gaps. Oftentimes the challenge is with instructors. And if somebody's a really good instructor, a lot of times they go to the private sector, there's more money. Yeah, you can get them when they retire, you can get them after work hours, et cetera. But solving that, and that's another way you could apply funding. If you gave a check to a community college or a vocational training enterprise so they could augment, provide a stipend in addition to the what they would make in their they'd stick around longer and you hang on to them. So the other thing that's big, and we didn't really mention it, that we're really focused on is transportation. There's childcare, but transportation, we're constantly hearing and learning that transportation is the biggest roadblock. So there's 3 items on your fund, and we can work with you on earmarks. Now, we don't lobby, just so you know, we educate. So
Yeah. No, I think this has been really interesting. I can't wait to share a lot of this with a number of my colleagues, including Bobby Scott, Virginia, who has been he's been chair of the education, labor, workforce development areas of policy. And to be able to just ramp up numbers so that more and more people can be touched by the apprenticeship program is a justified request in and of itself. And with a lot of these funds for STEM education going through the NSF, through the National Science Foundation, making certain that they're made aware of the reviews that I'm hearing about, and even within their diversity officer that has been established for the program. I hear your message about diversity and inclusion, but I think, for us to garner the votes we need on both sides of the aisle, reaching out to people, again, my colleagues of diverse background, is especially important. And, while regrettably we live in a culture of red and blue states, which I find is a tough situation to work through sometimes, but we've got a long process of bringing that together and making us all purple. But while we have that culture of red and blue, I know that a lot of these dollars from the CHIPS and Science Act, the infrastructure monies, the Inflation Reduction Act, all of which are science-driven and tech-driven, a lot of investments have been made in red states. And my message would be to all of my colleagues, which is my message to leadership. It's great to get the investments for industry to grow in our respective states, our districts, but we want to make certain that there's a natural impact for the local population, letting them be part of that. And so it's a great strategy by which to grow the support for these programs and localize it to a degree so that as a national issue we can reach home easily by touching the lives of many. I think certainly the facilitator role that the teacher can play, working with all of your groups, working within BOCES and our K through 12 network, and having them more able to facilitate with you, I think is an important part of the outcome also. So, a lot of work to do. This is very helpful to hear the front line sharing their experiences and empowering young people to not only develop and land a job, but to establish a career, which I think is so important. And look, the industry, we learned through COVID that supply-side crises were being addressed by these bills. CHIPS happens to be important to everything from our phones and coffee makers to our automobiles, and with EVs on the assembly line, production line, they require even more chips. So it affects all of us, but to focus on that individual student, that individual worker of the future, and to do it in a way that is meaningful and enables that person to get into a what's happening now kind of career, it's only going to grow. And it is an eclipsing, I think, from the workforce of the past. And that basic that you get through the apprenticeship, as you indicated, Mike, is transferable to many, many component industries. And basically, that particular industry will then hone the skills beyond that apprenticeship that they'll require for their individual work setting. So thank you, everybody, for your input. It's
Thank
been
you.
tremendous.
Thank you, Congressman. I'll close with just an offer to, first of all, it's thank you for the partnership, and it's a pleasure to support this region, and truly, this region's leading the effort nationally. I don't think it's not an accident that the first of the national hubs, CHIPS hubs, was awarded here for EUV. So we at the Institute run the National Center for Skills-Based Learning. So we promote skills-based learning and hiring. So any of these best practices, anything that we want to advance, there's a platform. We also have the Workforce and Education Career and Apprentice Network. That's where we get practitioners and really think of it as a community of practice where we can facilitate discussions, share information. So that is open to New York State, open to the region as a platform. And everything we have it's a continuous improvement process. And if it's something that we wanted or you wanted to do that it doesn't do, or you want to host something on a platform, back to the ability to scale an infrastructure, it exists for that purpose. So you don't have to invent it. Also, there's a lot of talk going on and even CHIPS money being spent on developing the knowledge, skills, and abilities needed in the apprenticeship program. So we spent a decade doing that. We actually have the knowledge, skills, and abilities required competencies for the semiconductor jobs. We sponsor, actually in New York State, we have more programs out of the 118 employers in New York State than anywhere else. So we work with Global Foundries, Micron, Indium, Wolfspeed, on and on and on. All of their jobs have been profiled. All of their knowledge, skills, and abilities required are already cataloged, and they inform not only their individual programs, if they're tailored, but also more broadly. So we don't need to invest money and time on that, but rather take advantage of what exists. Back to scaling, and better, take the same dollars if you were awarded it, resist the inclination to show that you have to lead and create, use the same money to deploy outreach and engagement. And we will work with you all to do that. So with that, I think maybe you have a proclamation or something?
I do. Before I do, let me thank you, Mike, for working so hard to develop the Institute, which obviously is growing into more and more states. And as a nation, we're empowered by these industries, but those industries are empowered by the workers and the talent and skill set that they'll bring to the table. And so it all begins with that vision of a new economy, a precision economy. And to Joe, thank you, Joe Dragone, for just being such a leader in the education field. I remembered working with you on robotics and STEM when I didn't represent Ballston Spa, and I said it was the best district to go to that I didn't represent. And, you know, just appreciated you bringing that talent over to a larger region with BOCES. It was a great benefit for them. And to our organizations and our industries here today, thank you for implementing the vision and making it happen. I think that, you know, we come up with great concepts, but it takes that infrastructure at home to put it into place. So know that you're hope for a lot of young people, a lot of people perhaps transitioning, and for families. You know, it's life altering, and certainly career developing. I stress that over and over because it's well beyond a job. You can see the ladders in this career, and so thank you for that. With all that being said, I do want to present a proclamation from the House, and I think we'll present this to you, Mike. And basically, we've all acknowledged here this morning that we're in the midst of National Apprenticeship Week, and the Thursday of that week now has become Semiconductor Awareness Day, and rightfully so. So this proclamation chronicles all of the growth of the importance of apprenticeships in the workforce development agenda, and it speaks to a number of networkings that come together in this packaging of a vision to really reach students with cutting-edge opportunities in science and tech and the focus on STEM. So the proclamation declares that the 21st of November, yesterday, is recognized as National Semiconductor Day, and that we honor all of those who are part of developing the workforce of the future and for the industry. So congrats there, Mike. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's not by accident Semiconductor Day falls on this week, because as we had all had kind of embellished, is that in order to build a pipeline, we have to open the door up for others to participate that might not have the degree initially, to build a pathway to getting degrees later on as you advance your career, but to get into the industry. So that's why National Semiconductor Day is during National Apprenticeship Week.
Yeah.
But thank you very much, Congressman.
All right.
Thank you
Thanks.
all.
A lot of lives touched.
Thank you for joining us today. A recording of this event, as well as information on upcoming webinars, will be available on NIICA's website. For more information about the National Institute for Industry and Career Advancement and its programs, visit niica.org.